Florida Crossroads is produced with support from the Florida Department of Education.
Hello and welcome to Florida Crossroads. I'm Beth Switzer. Florida has its share of unique, if not unusual, people and places. One such place is a small village in central Florida known as Cassadaga. It's considered by many to be the psychic capital of the world. But its residents go beyond predicting the future. As Rebecca Baer shows us, Cassadaga is a hotbed of paranormal activity, a place where anything can happen.
At first glance, it looks like a typical neighborhood, a little spot in Volusia County just north of Deltona, where residents mow their lawns on Saturday, go to church on Sunday, and where children play at the nearby park. But take a closer look and you'll find this is actually what some residents themselves describe as Mayberry meets the Twilight Zone. Welcome to Cassadaga, Florida. Population about 75 people and countless spirits of the dead.
The first person I'm feeling stepping forward from the spirit side of life feels as if she's probably a grandmother to me. Do you have a grandmother in spirit? Okay.
At the Cassadaga Spiritualist Camp, residents say they can communicate with the dead, a phenomenon called mediumship. And for them, it's not just a hobby or a business. It's a religion.
We really feel like we do work for spirit.
Maida Jones is the associate pastor at Colby Memorial Temple, Cassadaga's spiritualist church.
Spiritualism is a religion, but it's not a dogmatic religion. And we have 9 principles that unite us. And those 9 principles basically obviously include the idea that there's life after passing, that we can communicate with the people who pass on.
Spiritualists come from all walks of life. That individualism, Cassadagans say, is one reason their community has thrived since 1894.
The interesting thing about spiritualism, if you ask 5 spiritualists about something, you're probably going to get 5 answers. And so sometimes people are put off by that and they think, well, something must be wrong. These people don't know what they think. But it's very much within the nature of our thinking that we need to find our personal paths. We don't dismiss other people's leaders and other people's thoughts. In fact, spiritualism is not necessarily meant to interfere with other beliefs. For instance, you could be a Christian, you could be a Jew, and you could still be a spiritualist if you believe in the 9 principles, which are very broad. We like to give people an opportunity to think and to explore and to find their own truths, and we believe that when people find their own truths, they're much more apt to live up to them than someone who's had it dictated to him or her.
Today, spiritualism is considered an alternative religion by most, but it wasn't always that way. At its peak in the 1890s, there were as many as 8 million spiritualists worldwide. That's the sound that first gave rise to the spiritualist movement. Cassadaga residents know the story by heart.
Raps, taps, and knocks, that's how it started. March 31st, 1848, in a little village outside of Rochester called Hydesville, where the Fox sisters, the Fox family, was living there.
The young Fox sisters said they began hearing an unexplained knocking sound in their bedroom. It was believed that the sound came from a spirit who haunted the Fox cottage.
Finally, one night, the kids, the girls, tried to establish intelligent communication with the so-called spirits, and they did. They get 1 knock, spirit gives 1 knock. They give 2 knocks, spirit gives 2 knocks. And so the general public was there to hear it. People came in, doctors came in, lawyers came in, politicians came in, neighbors came in. There it was.
These events made the Fox sisters famous. They became mediums, traveling around the country performing seances. These events, in which the sisters claimed they could channel the spirits of the dead, drew hundreds of people, some of them quite notable. That's when the spiritualist movement took off. Historians say even Mary Todd Lincoln, wife of President Lincoln, held seances in the White House in an effort to contact her deceased son, Willie. Queen Victoria was also known to practice spiritualism. Around this time, another key spiritualist, George Colby, was coming into his own. Elizabeth Owens, pastor at Colby Memorial Temple, has done extensive research on him.
He was born in Pike, Allegheny County, New York, January 6, 1848. And I think that's interesting because spiritualism, it began March 31st, 1848. When he was 12 years old is when his mediumistic abilities were ignited. He was baptized at the age of 12. It was January, it was the dead of winter. So in order to dunk him in the water, they had to drill down 3 feet through the ice in the pond. And they claimed the water was 10 degrees below zero. So I guess that was a shocking experience that must have snapped something in him. Along that same time, he received a reading from a medium, and the medium brought through his uncle. And the uncle said, "You are a medium, and you are going to found a spiritual community in the South." So from then on, through his teenage years, he had remarkable abilities in clairvoyance and laying on of hands healing. At the age of 19, he went about as a test medium and traveled through Indiana, Iowa, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, everywhere, giving readings during the day, seances at night. And during the seances, he would bring through relatives and friends of the people there. And he did it basically in trance. And he would speak to them in Scandinavian languages, French, German, which George sure did not have an ability to do. He didn't have that kind of education.
Around 1875, Colby again is said to have received a message about the spiritual community he was to found. He was told the land was being held for him by a Congress of Spirits, so Colby headed south to find it. George Colby came to Florida, landing at nearby Blue Springs. As the story goes, the next day he fell into a trance. That's when his spirit guides, including a Native American one named Seneca, led him through the wilderness to the spot which would become the spiritualist camp. While Colby began to build his homestead in Florida, spiritualists in western New York formed a camp, not uncommon for religious groups in those days. The camp was, and still is, located near the New York town of Cassadaga, a Seneca word that means rocks beneath the water. In 1879, they named the camp the Cassadaga Lake Free Association, now known as Lilydale. Soon after the founding of the camp, one of its trustees, E.W. Bond, met George Colby, and the two discussed establishing a camp at what would become Florida's Cassadaga Spiritualist Camp.
It was E.W. Bond who brought the people from Lilydale, New York, in touch with George Colby. Because at that time, the people in Lilydale, which is a spiritualist community, they wanted, guess what? A place to go during the winter. Must have been the early snowbirds, I guess.
In 1894, Colby deeded 35 acres to the New York Spiritualist, and together they formed the Southern Cassadaga Spiritualist Camp Meeting Association.
Most of the people who came to Cassadaga way back when in the 1890s were affluent and well educated. Otherwise, they probably could not have afforded it. And I would hazard a guess to say the men probably worked and the women came down and until they had nice cottages to live in, and then the men would join them periodically. But they established the community basically to have a place they could practice their religion and to have it as being their winter retreat. And originally they had tents. You can imagine the tents around Spirit Pond and around Lake Colby until they were able to establish the cottages that they built.
Today, Cassadaga is the oldest spiritualist community in the South, one factor that put it on the National Register of Historic Places in 1992. It's also the only spiritualist camp in Florida. Not too much has changed since its founding. Many of the camp's early buildings still stand, adding to the quaintness that draws thousands of visitors from all over the world. The camp has grown to 57 acres, with members owning their individual homes and the association owning the land beneath. The practice of metaphysics continues as well. Among the camp's most popular activities, a nighttime tour that claims to give participants visual and audible proof of spirits.
I know they have a lot of really expensive equipment out there, but it really isn't necessary for you to have to go spend tons of money to want to connect or hear with spirit.
This is the weekly Spirit Encounter Tour, guided by Jody Bellis. Before the tour, she attempts to bring spirit energy into the room.
All right, Spirit, and if you're here, we got the flashlights out once again. I'm going to show you in case you feel like turning them on.
In hopes of recording spirit voices on a spirit box, typically a modified AM/FM radio used to communicate with spirits through radio frequencies.
Spirit, are you here tonight?
On this night, Bellis thinks she heard from Justin, a spirit with whom she regularly communicates. She plays back the recording, which we've edited to highlight where Bellis believes the spirit is talking. Listen closely for a voice that asks, "Where's the party?"
Where's the party? Spirit, are you here tonight? Oh, yeah? Yes, you?
In the final recording, it sounds like a voice on the radio mentions humans.
The humans.
Bellis also shares some of her spirit photography with the group. The photos contain circular objects called orbs.
So there can be a lot of things that cause those circular objects in your photographs. A lot of people say it's just dust, some people say it's spirit. It's actually a little bit of both. An orb is caused usually off of a refraction of light. It can be a refraction of light off of dust, a refraction of light off of water or condensation, but it can also be a refraction of light off of spirit.
In some of her photos, Bellis says you can make out faces within the orbs. In one, she points out a figure she describes as an elf boy. The evening then wraps up with a stroll through town. Participants learn a little bit of Cassadaga history while they take a shot at capturing some spirit orbs or elves of their own. But if meditation is more of your interest, visitors to Cassadaga can receive what's called a healing for a small donation.
This is an opportunity for all of us to experience healing presence. The healing presence of our guides, the healing presence of our own being.
We met Suzanne DeWeese at a healing class she teaches. She says there are several forms of healing in the spiritualist tradition. First, magnetic healing, a hands-on style in which the healer uses his or her energy to bring peace and relaxation to the client. The next level, contact healing, is where DeWeese says her spirit guides or those of her client come in.
So the contact then is with the non-physical dimension. And very often magnetic healing leads to contact healing. And then once I'm working with the guides, I'm like jumper cables. Do you see? I'm empathetic with the client and I'm allowing my own body just to let the energy flow. So that's very essential, is just to sort of get out of the way. I'm not directing the energy, I'm letting spirit do all the work. But my own personal energy isn't intended to heal or to cure. But when I'm working with guides, when I'm working with the non-physical dimension, extremely powerful, and I can't limit that with my mind. So I may have a client come to me with cancer, and I do work with a lot of cancer patients. I can't make any promises, but I can trust and have faith that spirit, the mind of God, will do everything possible to heal that being. So it might be that the healing is just to settle the person into themselves, just to relax into their being, into their existence. Or it might be the healing is directed to actually cure. I can't say. It's not up to me. It's up to spirit what the results are.
But possibly the most intriguing aspect of Cassadaga, its mediums. Visitors to the camp can make an appointment with a medium by stopping by the bookstore. There, they find a board with the names of available mediums. Instructions direct them to choose one by determining which name they feel drawn to. The cost of a reading varies, but mediums usually ask for $50 or $60 for 30 minutes of their time. Visitors may also receive a reading at the church service at Colby Memorial Temple on Sundays. Our cameras weren't allowed inside for the service, but it begins with a healing session for those who wish to partake. In the meantime, other congregants can participate in a guided meditation.
Relax, get comfortable, and just breathe.
As in other religious denominations, they sing hymns and listen to a sermon. But unlike others, the sermon is followed by readings, also called messages, from a guest medium.
The purpose of this service is to demonstrate the continuity of life.
A second, less formal service, also offering messages, is held in the afternoon at the bookstore. Some readings focus on contact with deceased loved ones, others on the present and future.
Spirit is showing me, Tim, as I come in around you, that you're a little bit agitated or aggravated with the current set of events around you.
There's something funny note about him wearing shorts. I don't know if that's something he didn't do, if he had funny looking knees, but I feel like this is either a photograph or something, and it has to do with shorts. Okay, that's evidence for you. Your neighbor is giggling, so I think that she understands the reference, and I'm hoping that you do too.
They'd like to encourage you to be better at showing your emotions.
At the service, Patrick Bopp believes his father's spirit came through to him.
And he's showing me him kicking you in the behind to get in gear. He says there's some things that you've just kind of been mulling over, and it's time, and now is the time. Get it in gear, Patrick.
Bopp said he had never been to Cassadaga before and decided to take a drive at the last minute from his home near Ocala.
I was a skeptic when I got here, and now I'm more spiritual, I guess. I believe what they said, or what that lady, my reading or whatever she did, was pretty accurate. My father just passed a few years ago, and we were close, but we were not loving as they got, as she said we should have been, and it just felt like she actually had a contact with my father.
What about that kick in the butt thing?
Yeah, my kick in the butt, I get them all the time from my father, so I understand that.
While Bopp came to Cassadaga on an impromptu visit, that's also how many mediums say they first became acquainted with the camp. They offer similar answers on what first drew them to the spiritual community.
I still was floundering to know what to do with myself, what to pursue in life, etc. And in living in Orlando at the time, a friend said, "Why don't you come up to Cassadaga?" And I didn't know what Cassadaga was.
I got involved in Cassadaga because I was involved in a serious auto accident. I almost died. And as a result of that, I became very depressed. And I had been going to Silver Mind Control and various things to learn to focus, to calm myself, get my head on straight. And my roommate came home one time from going to a meditation class in Cassadaga, and she said, "Why don't you come to class with me?"
Both Owens and medium Diane Davis found their calling at Cassadaga, though like most Cassadaga spiritualists, they already had a sense of their abilities. Maida Jones says the ability to connect with spirit is in her genes.
For me, it was in the family already, part of the family, one side of the family, my father's side of the family, although my mother and father always believed in spirit and communication and that sort of thing. And it really took off when I moved to Florida. And I came to Cassadaga and found out that you didn't have to be content with whatever native ability you seemed to have. You could actually develop it. And that was news for me. I never realized that.
In fact, all mediums and healers who do business within the camp must be certified. That means undergoing a minimum of 4 years of training. They take classes in the history of spiritualism, natural law, public speaking, and ethics.
We certify all our teachers. Somebody from the outside just can't come in and say, hey, I want to teach a class on clairvoyance. We don't do that. All our teachers have been certified and permitted through this organization. Because of our certification and our permitting abilities, that's what sets us apart from the corner psychics. Okay. We don't really consider ourselves psychics, we consider ourselves mediums. The difference is all of us have the ability to be psychic. That's that intuitive ability to connect.
Casadega's mediums go beyond intuition. They say they learn how to raise their vibration to communicate with the departed in order to conduct readings or healings.
For me, I'm a clairsentient, okay, which means I sense. It's that I know because I know because I know. I can't put my finger on it, but I just know. But after the training and through the years, you can do all of it. Okay, I can smell great-grandfather coming in with his musty pipe tobacco. Okay, or great-aunt Sue with that rosewater cologne she used to wear. You can hear with training. You can develop your ability to hear. And so all of us have it. It's just the strengths. We can see. I see spirit now.
Another way some mediums try to interact with spirit is through what's described as physical phenomenon.
Physical phenomenon is the spirit world interfacing with the material world in an objective way. In other words, if this book starts to levitate, it's not something I'm seeing in my mind. Everybody would see it. It's not subjective, it's objective. So they used different types of physical phenomena to get our attention.
Don Zangi gives an example of physical phenomena he says he witnessed in his own home.
Up on the wall back behind me, I had some little souvenir instruments I bought in Mexico a few years before, and this little guitar type thing up on the wall, way up there. All of a sudden I'm hearing, bring, bring, bring. So what is that? Some spirit was strumming on that guitar 10 feet behind us.
Zangi says spirits don't come through in this physical way as much as they used to. Now, he says, even they use technology like radios and telephones to connect with us. But Zangi still holds the occasional seance in which participants are seated around a table while they attempt to communicate with spirits.
We set the conditions during the seance for physical phenomena. There's a blending of energies. They can lower their vibrational rate a bit, and we can raise ours to meet at this certain point, and that's when the phenomena can happen and the communication can happen. For instance, when we do a table tipping seance, if the table moves, that's a yes. It's yes or no questions. If the table, excuse the expression, goes dead, it's a no.
With those kinds of stories, it's no wonder Casadega is a popular destination, and the camp eagerly welcomes visitors. One event the camp holds periodically is Gala Day, when Casadega offers visitors discount readings and the camp is open to arts, crafts, and jewelry vendors. Stacy Mironov traveled from Delray Beach on Gala Day for a reading.
You feel so attuned to something beyond yourself, and the interpretation, of course, can be what you want to make out of it, but I believe that my reading was an incredible, meaningful one, where I know that there were spirits that were speaking to me, who are close to me and dear to me. It's an amazing energy that's here. It's even hard to explain. It's a very spiritual experience for, I would think, even anybody who doesn't believe in anything.
But not everyone is so willing to accept what Casadegans have to offer. Community leaders say they never received any direct pushback, but they found that some people have misconceptions about what they do. Elizabeth Owens said it happened on Gala Day.
2 people that day approached me and said they had never been here before because they lived nearby, never been here, because they thought it was evil. We also have this thing where people think we are witches. And we aren't witches, we're mediums. And there's a difference in being a medium and a witch. And I'm not condemning witches or witchcraft or Wicca by any means. But to say that we are Wiccan is like saying we're Catholic, we're Baptist, we're Methodist. We're none of that. It's just a separate belief system. We are not Wiccans, and we don't worship the devil like some people like to think. We don't even believe in the devil.
Instead, camp residents say they think they do a lot of good.
People come here, and you sat in the audience and you saw the people who came to get healing. People are suffering. They're hurting emotionally, body, mind, spirit, everything, and they come for healing.
However, there are skeptics and plenty who claim to have debunked mediumship. While some say they were coerced into a confession, even the Fox sisters themselves, the founders of spiritualism, ultimately claimed it was a hoax. That knocking sound, they said they created it by cracking their toe joints. But Cassadaga spiritualists certainly believe that what they do is for real, and they're not bothered by the skeptics.
That's well, have you experienced it? Do you know what you're talking about? One thing in spiritualism is we never expect anybody to believe anything just on faith. It's ridiculous. We allow the people, we give them the opportunity to experience a reading, a healing, a message, or again, to get your attention, physical phenomena. You know, when it actually happens. And then they can deny it if they want, that's their problem. They can put any spin on it that they want, that's their problem. But most people come away going, darn, this is real, you see? And so we're not out to convert anybody, we're out to educate people and give them the opportunity for the experience.
Whether you're a believer or not, there's no denying that the Cassadaga Spiritualist Camp is an interesting place to visit. You never know what's going to happen here. Maybe you'll hear from Grandma, maybe you'll snap a few pictures of ghosts, or maybe you won't. But there's a good chance that you'll leave with either something to think about, an inspiring thought,
No more thinking and stewing. Get up and get it done.
a good story to tell, or at the very least, something cool from the gift shop.